What are some of your earliest memories of going to Mass? Can you think back and remember any of your earliest memories of going to Mass, perhaps as a child? One of my earliest memories was that my parents, they would always have us sitting in the second or third row, always on that side, on stage left. They'd have us right up near the altar. And I remember at a certain age, I couldn't yet see above the pews until I stood up on the kneeler, and then I could just see over it. And I remember one day watching the priest, and I don't know where this thought came from, but I put my hands to my eyes like this. Should we all do it together? Have you done this before? As if you're holding binoculars, right? So I'm like holding my child binoculars, peering up over the pew at the priest. That image comes to mind because that's what Jesus is asking us to do in today's gospel. To watch. To watch. Imagine the role in the ancient world of the sentinel, the watch person. To guard ourselves from our enemies, we would put walls around our dwellings, around our city, and then we would need people standing on top watching. And should someone come, the shout would go up. In today's gospel, Jesus uses a similar image of the person waiting at the gate for the master of the house to come home. The master has gone away, and we don't know when he's coming back. But when he comes back, we don't want to be found sleeping. Imagine the guard person sleeping at the gate when the master comes back. That would not be good. Be alert. Watch. Because you don't know the day or the hour of the Lord's coming. That's the message of these Advent weeks as we think about the second coming of Christ. As a church, we talk about Christ's three comings. Do you remember what those are? The first coming was when he came 2,000 years ago, the first coming of Christ. The second coming, we say it every time we come to Mass. Christ has died, Christ is risen. What? Christ will come again. What are you singing? Christ will come again. When? At the end of time. Christ came 2,000 years ago. Christ died. Christ rose into heaven. Christ will come again at the end of time. Watch. Do you know when that is? If not, better for us to be alert and to live our lives as if Christ were coming today. Christ is coming today. When we talk about the third coming of Christ, it's Christ not simply coming 2,000 years ago, not simply coming at the end of time, but Christ coming here today, in the word proclaimed, in the bread and wine that we share, in the face of that person beside you. Christ came today. How's that for pretty powerful? Do you remember when I was a child, perhaps when you were younger as well, at church we used to ring bells at the consecration? Do you remember that? When the priest held up the host, of course the priest's back was to us, so the bell was a way of waking us up. Amen? The priest's back was to us, but when the priest raised the host over his head, they rang a bell, first of all, to get our attention to that, but also to signify that Christ was present in that moment. And yes, Christ is present in that moment, but I've got news for you. Look beside you, look in front of you, look behind you. Christ is in those people too. Which is why we no longer ring bells like that at church at the moment of consecration, because if we wanted to ring bells when Christ was present, we'd have to ring the bells from the time the first person walks in the door until the time that the last person goes out the door. Follow me? Christ is present. Watch. Open your eyes. Be alert. That person who drives you crazy later today, watch. Christ is in that person. Sisters and brothers, as we celebrate this Advent season of the increasing light in this world, let us all be watchful, waiting for the coming of the Lord, not just 2,000 years ago or at the end of time, but also coming into our lives today. Let us stand and